Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. On today's program, we have with us Dr. Sheeba Rahman. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sheeba.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Thank you so
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And it's always a pleasure to have Dr. Sheeba on our program. And Dr. Sheeba, of course, is a medical doctor. She's a psychiatrist and she is specialized in mental health and the whole 9 yards that go with that, depression and all the psychological repercussions and technicalities that go with that. So stay tuned as we talk to Dr. Sheeba Rahman. Once more, welcome to the show, Dr. Sheeba.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Right. So, for the benefit of our viewers, could you share with our viewers a little bit about your background? Because, uh, social media, TV, such that I know you were on the show a couple months ago, and we promised to bring you back, and we really, really love to have you on. We had a lot of feedback, a lot of nice comments with your contribution when you appeared on our show. So tell us a little bit, about your background, New Jersey, etc.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm from New York originally. I'm from Long Island, and I've been living in South Florida now for 5 years, alhamdulillah. And I'm basically a board certified psychiatrist, which means I went to medical school, I studied medicine, became a medical doctor, and then I specialized in the field of psychiatry. So what I do every day is treat mental health problems and mental illness, which includes depression, anxiety, mood disorders, and psychotic disorders. So that's basically what I do in terms of my profession, is the treatment of those sorts of disorders.
So presently, right now, yes, you are in Florida, and this is what you're involved in all the time, right?
All the time. I'm trying to help educate the community about mental health and give some mental health awareness to the community because it's very underrepresented in our community.
Like for example, what issues have you been seeing happening, etc.?
Lately, I'll tell you, depression and anxiety have been on the rise more so than usual. There's a couple of things besides COVID that's happening. It's social media. People are starting to get addicted to social media. And what happens is people look at other images all day long in between whatever they're doing, and it's affecting their mind. It's affecting how they're thinking. It's affecting how they're thinking about themselves, how they're thinking about other people, and then it's affecting their mood, their behavior, their relationships, etc. So it seems very benign and harmless to pick up your phone and kind of swipe up or down or left or right and think you're going to check the news or Google something really quick. But then all these images, your mind is bombarded with all these images that it has to process. And so it is taking a toll on the mind. People are being affected by it, but they're not realizing it. They seem to think that in their little quick break during lunch or coffee, they can look at their phone and it'll be a nice little temporary relief from their workday. But then those images stay in their mind and it affects their own self-image and how they think about themselves and other people. So this is kind of a strong impact that it's having on the community right now, or in general. And it's something that people need to have some insight about. They need to start setting limits on how much they're going on social media. For example, even in a social setting now, it's more about taking pictures and posting pictures and viewing those pictures versus enjoying the moment and being in the moment. People go out to eat to a restaurant rather than enjoying their meal, they'd rather post a picture of it. And so now on the receiving end, people are looking at these photographs and there's all these thoughts of what could be or could not be happening at that moment. So there's a lot going on and people are not understanding that the mind has a lot to do with this. It's processing so much information, it's information overload. And so it's kind of hard for people to compartmentalize what they're seeing and how that's affecting their thinking.
Wow, that's interesting. That's that's interesting. So, the very same thing, social media, that can be cure to some situations, it's becoming a problem in itself. So the key factor here is people need to have a balance.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
need to have a balance and they need to understand what information to take from social media and what to leave. It's like television, it's like the news. You got to know what is fake and what is not fake and what you should stay away from and not let affect you.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a serious, serious situation that's happening in present times. Wow. And it doesn't matter what a person may be, what profession they may be from,
yeah,
based on the kind of information they get, it will affect the mind. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
subhanallah. So what kind of activities are you having to try to resolve this problem?
Well, I'm starting with here, and I'm starting to do youth groups, in the local centers to kind of educate the youth about this and the different patterns. So one of the things that's different nowadays that the youth is facing is that they have access to everything on their fingertips through their phone. And I mean, even us. Back in the day, if you want to tune into the news, you have to kind of, there's timings for the news and what time the news will be on and what time you tune into a certain channel. Now it's 24/7. There's no time limit. You can wake up in the middle of the night and look at your phone. You can get up first thing in the morning and look at the phone. So it's kind of setting limits on yourself as to how much you want to expose yourself to this, because it's too much to assume that, okay, it's okay for you to receive all this information in the middle of the night and assume that in the morning you'll be okay with it. You don't know what's going to come at you and you don't know how it's going to make you think or feel. So it's very much unregulated and it's all out there, everything. So you can try to look for something spiritual and find something about your diet instead, or look for something about your diet and find something about entertainment. It's all out there. So you have to kind of figure out a way to moderate yourself and your activity with social media.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I'm thinking a person might just look at the wrong thing before they sleep and then they may end up with a nightmare. With a
Yes.
nightmare, and that can ruin the entire night and the next day. So it's a lot of things that can create this kind of repercussion if a person does not control what they look at. And you made a very good point. Looking at television in some cases got the time that you're sitting at the airport and you're looking at something or you're home after work. So it does not create it doesn't affect you, for want of a
Yeah.
better word, as
Yeah.
much as you might be in the middle of something during the day and you look at something else and it throws your whole modus operandi on what you're trying to get done. Subhanallah. That's interesting. I didn't think that would be a problem in nowadays time, but it is, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The surroundings and the environment certainly affect how you think and you feel. I mean, you could be a very strong person, very regimented person, but if you have something pleasant walk in the door and listening to something pleasant, that'll make you feel a certain way. If you're listening to some sort of hostile, some people arguing or fighting, that'll affect you in a different way. So our environment does affect to a certain degree how we think and we feel and how we handle the situation. So now it's not necessarily that you have to step outside of your home or your workplace to be exposed to so much. Now you're flooded with information within seconds. Within seconds.
Yes, yes. So tell me something. How, in your profession as a therapist, how do you see social media affecting husband and wife relationship? What are some of your experience or cases that you would have dealt with in which social media has affected a husband and wife relationship?
Well, it's affecting relationships in many different ways. One is, depending on what your dynamics are in your marriage, it's what rather than being attentive to your spouse, you're looking at your phone. and you're messaging someone back and you're texting someone back, or you're looking at something, or you're responding to something. And at that moment that you can have that moment with your husband and wife, you're dividing it now with whoever is on your phone or whatever you're looking at in the phone. So then it makes your spouse feel less important. So this is one of the conflicts that most people are running into, that they can't have a wholesome conversation with their spouse because the phone is interfering. I mean, it used to be the kids, the relatives, the family members, but now no one else could be in the room except you, your spouse, and the phone. And it's like that's happening to parents and children. That's happening, in workplaces where people are like, well, this person is always on their phone and they should be working. Or, you're trying to sit and have a conversation, the parents with the children, then children are constantly looking at the phone. So this is an issue that's interfering with relationships. The other side of that is that there's a lot of personal information on there. People put their family album on there, they put their photographs on there. So a lot of times people are internalizing things. Oh, well, this person has this, and they celebrated their birthday this way, and they celebrated their anniversary that way. And now they start comparing themselves. Why am I not doing this? Why did we not go there? Why can't we go and go shopping every day? That sort of thing. So it's affecting how you're thinking about yourself, and then you bring it and play it out in your relationships, because you're constantly seeing all these images and you're assuming that you should be a part of that. You see what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily, I think it's designed in such a way that it's fulfilling. You feel for that second that this is going to satisfy me, but later on there's different consequences. You see?
Wow, and that creates a lot of the grass is green on the other side situation. The grass
Right.
is green on the other side, and then it can make life miserable at home.
Absolutely.
Subhanallah. Listen, this gets, I mean, and it's not that we have a problem with social media. Technology is beautiful. We love social media. It's the medium for a lot of communication. Like
Yes.
we on this program right now. It's all about technology and communication. But what you are basically saying is there should be a time and there should be control and be a balance in what we look at and when we look at it, and try to not let certain things affect us. And Dr. Sheba, that's where the Quran comes in, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
the Sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, comes in. Where
Mm-hmm.
if we were to see something on social media, we should go back into the Quran, into the Sunnah, into Islam, and see if it's within within the boundaries, the peripheral of Islam. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's not, then we just don't take it. And
Yeah.
if it's
Mm-hmm.
within the Islamic teachings,
Mm-hmm.
mashallah, because the Islamic teachings cover everything: science, philosophy, medicine, the
Yes.
whole 9 yards. And if it's something that it's not un-Islamic, then subhanallah, subhanallah, it is so practical. But I think that's what is happening. A lot of people are just taking anything, and they
Yeah.
just want to become anything that they see out there, and that is affecting. It's affecting husband and wife relationship, parents and children. It is. It is a serious problem, huh?
Exactly. And you bring up a good point about the Quran and the Sunnah, because even for religious advice, people are seeing things on social media and they are assuming that this is accurate, versus going to the Quran and Sunnah and consulting with a sheikh, with someone like yourself with their expertise, and asking, is this accurate or not? Instead, they make assessments about, well, this is what the deen says, and then you wonder, okay, where in the deen does it say this? And it's, well, it was on Instagram or it was on Facebook. So you have to understand, sometimes there's a lot of advice out there, whether it's religious advice, mental health advice, things about medical problems, that it may not be coming from the professionals in that field. So if I had a question about the Quran and Sunnah that I couldn't necessarily understand, I would ask you, because you're a sheikh. How do you interpret this? Because you have the expertise to do so. versus, seeing a quote that I saw on Instagram and now assuming that this is accurate, you see. So even who you see on social media, you have to go to the credible resources, like Alhikmat is a credible institute, with a credible sheikh like yourself, where you can give reliable advice. And so it's a beautiful medium to give dawah as you do. But then there's other people who put out religious advice that don't have the credentials or the credibility. And the viewer may not understand that. The viewer may just take that advice as if that's accurate advice. And same thing goes for mental health. There's a lot of people that are not in the mental health profession that are putting out a lot of mental health advice. It may be good advice, but it may not be a professional opinion per se. So you have to kind of pick and choose, where you want to get your information from.
Right. It got to be authentic, and it got to have that support that is really beneficial, and that's why in Islam, and from the Quranic point of view, we were taught to verify news, verify information before we just run with it. And social media is something that we can definitely apply and this Islamic teachings to verify. And a lot of people, as you rightly said, do not verify. They just take what they see, what they hear, and think that is authentic, and that can be so corrupted, and so misleading. Wow, Dr. Sheeba, that was interesting. It's very interesting. Again, before we conclude the first segment, we have already been talking for 15 minutes, sorry, and we got a 45-minute program here. So before we get into the next segment, we got to go on a short break. And when we come back, we will continue our conversation. So to our viewers out there, it has been a pleasure talking to Dr. Sheeba Rahman. And we will continue this conversation after the short break, inshallah. So stay tuned.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 67, Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al, fama balagta risalatahu. Very deep. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread the message of the Quran. And he told the Prophet, and if you do not spread the message, you did not fulfill the mission of the messenger. So you and I are followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we can afford one Quran, help us join in distributing the Quran. So if you can't afford one Quran, do it. $3. 10 Quran, $30. 100 Quran, $300.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Once more, it is a pleasure to have with us on today's program a very prominent person, a very well-educated person, person with a very powerful medical background. Her husband is a doctor and she's a doctor, and we always enjoy having her on our show. And that's no less a person than Dr. Sheeba Rahman. For those of you who have just tuned in, I just wanted to let you know that Dr. Sheeba Rahman is a psychiatrist, and she is specialized in mental health situations. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Sheeba.
Thank you so much, Shaikh Shafayat. Thank you.
Good. I know we had a wonderful conversation before we went on the break on social media. And just for clarification, no one is bashing social media. We're just saying, like everything else, you go to the grocery store, you go in the marketplace, You got to take what is good for you and leave what is not good for you. And I'm not one of those people who just bash people for everything, or don't use your phone and everybody on the phone. I mean, a phone is a very important device. A telephone is a
Yes.
major necessity of today. Dr. Sheeba, I run Darul Uloom, I run Alhikmat on my
Right.
phone. All my programs and all my, agenda, lecture schedule is on the phone. So it saves me from having to sit in an
Oh, wow.
office 24/7. A lot of
Yeah.
things we do. So nothing is wrong with the phone, with the
Absolutely.
computer, with the iPad. It's
Yeah.
take what is good for you and leave what is not good. And I'm saying that because I hear some people, knock down young people for being with a phone. And I think a phone is a necessity. It is a
I
necessity. Very,
Yeah.
very important. It's like a motor car. It is
Yes.
like a motor car. Once
Yeah.
upon a time, people used to say, oh, the rich drive motor cars. And they would think motor car is just a luxury and it's something of a show off, wealthy man item or luxury. But no, a vehicle is a necessity in life, a means of transportation. So the telephone is the same thing. And I wanted to clear that because I don't support people who knock down the phone all the time because it is a major necessity of today's time. I mean, it's a walking computer. It's a walking computer in your hand. It's a walking library.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, majority of my work as well is done on the phone. I mean, the amount of things that we do on our phone is remarkable, and it's a necessity. You're right, and in fact it's a privilege that we have the technology to be able to do that, and even the technology to be able to communicate with people across the country, across the world from our fingertips. So these are privileges that we have, and so it's just about not misusing those privileges and using it to your advantage and not to your disadvantage. I mean, I'm extremely pro technology. 100% of my work is over, on screen.
Same thing.
100% on
Same
screen.
thing
Yeah.
with me. Could you imagine COVID-19 with the shutdown? Could you
Yeah.
imagine the lockdown, the shutdown? If people did not
Yeah.
have their phones, they would have
Yes.
been going even double mad within
Exactly.
the walls of their homes.
Yes.
Within the walls of their homes, doctors were able to communicate with patients over the
Exactly.
phone, and there were a lot of things that were happening. So the phone is an ideal. It's a necessity. It should be there, but we need to use it like everything else for the right
Yes.
purpose. So wonderful. It's always a pleasure again. I mean, that's why we have people like you who are the experts in this kind of field. Sometimes someone like me from the religious perspective telling people something, they may think, well, that's just his religious opinion. But let's hear it from a medical doctor, from the scientist. And you are, the medical profession here. So it's good to hear it. And it's good for people like us to talk. You, myself, we got a
Yes.
balance with science and medicine and religion. And that
Yes.
is a beautiful balance in today's time.
Yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. I mean, that brings me to, I was wondering because, being a sheikh, your expertise as, as a role model in the community is very important. And a lot of what I deal with, along with people's mental health, is their family dynamics and how their family affects them and how they function based on their family dynamics within the household. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your background, if you don't mind sharing, as a family person, what were you like as a son and then, how you sort of transitioned from being a son to a husband and a father. And if you could share a little bit about your journey, because I think we need to know about our sheikhs and what their development was, so that because you're a role model for the brothers and the sisters in the community, so it's important to know that, what that journey was like. And it just I'm kind of interested to know and ask you if you're okay with that.
Well, well, I mean, you are a psychiatrist and you're a therapist, so it's good to be asking me that. No problem. I have no problem. I have no objection. And that would definitely help me and help our viewers. And, may help you with other clients, etc.
Yes,
So where do we
absolutely.
start from? My journey is an interesting journey.
So, I mean, are you, you being who you are, tell me a little bit about that. Are you the only child of your parents? Do you have siblings? What was that like when, were you an only child for a long time before you had siblings? Because you have a very strong relationship with your parents,
Yes,
that
yes.
contain. So I wanted to know a little bit about that.
So, basically, my parents were their grandparents, grandparents. So my
Mhm.
great grandparents came from India and they were brought by the British to the Caribbean. And
Mhm.
we're talking many, 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 many years ago, over 175 years, more or less. So we grew up very diverse in Trinidad, in the Caribbean. Very
Right.
diverse. Muslims, Christians,
Mhm.
Hindus,
Yeah.
India is a very interesting place with different cultures and different religions and different teachings. So that
Yeah.
was one aspect of our life.
Yeah.
And yes, I have one brother and I have one sister. My
Okay.
brother is about my brother is about 7 years younger than me, and
Okay.
my sister may be about 20. I think about 23 years, something like that, younger than me. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
However, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So my mother gave birth to my sister when my mom was 40 years of age.
Oh,
And that is
wow.
interesting, also interesting. So I grew up, I mean, this could be very emotional, but I grew up
Yeah.
with one brother from a
Mhm.
poor family as usual. That's always the history, and it's a great learning. It's a great
Yeah.
learning.
Yes.
And I had a little brother, my parents tell me, and I could barely remember. I was like about 2 or 3 years, I think, when that
Mhm.
little brother passed away at the age of 10 months. A baby.
Oh.
My parents had a baby boy, and I have to
Uh-huh.
relate that because that will help you understand my story.
Yes, of
So he
course.
was
It's
only
very
10 months, 10 months. So my
wow.
parents lost him.
Oh.
So that can tell you what happened to me. So now
Yeah.
I am the only child for my parents. So I'm like, as we say, the eyeball of my parents. Lost
Certainly.
one. So
Oh, yeah.
I do not feel ashamed to share this in the media, but
Good.
my mother would say this, and I have to say what she said. She said
Uh-huh.
he was brought up like a girl in the house. Meaning, they were so cautious with me. I couldn't go nowhere. I couldn't stay beyond time anyway when I was a little
Wow.
boy, four,
Uh-huh.
5, 6, 7 years. Remember, it's only when I had
Protective.
7 years my parents had another baby now. The other one
Yeah.
died at 10 months. So they
Right.
brought me up so close to nothing. No way could I go do anything. My
Oh,
father never allowed me to ride a bicycle on the street.
really?
Could you imagine?
Wow.
And I need to share that. So much
Yes.
they did not want to lose me. You lost one. You
Uh-huh.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Of course, they were
And
protective. Yep.
and I gotta cut this long story. So it then happened. I went to study. So I had a brother born 7 years after me.
Okay.
Then I went to study at the age of 16 years in India. So could
Oh,
you
wow.
imagine? Now my
Yeah.
mother is and my father, they went into a whole different kind of stress.
Of
And
course.
they were happy to send me, but they felt
Yes.
like they were losing me.
Yes, of course.
And
You're their
that's
child. Yeah.
that brought now the my brother passing away at 10 months. The baby passing away at 10 months brought
Yes.
them closer to me, right? Then I
Yes.
went at 16 years, and you will not believe my mother will keep my clothing. When I
Uh,
come back, I would see it when I came back from studying. She will
uh-huh.
miss me. She would cry. My parents, you would not believe. That's a whole, you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
45 years ago, you know what it
Uh-huh.
was? No telephone, no communication, no social
Right.
media. I would
Yeah.
write a letter from India. It will take sometimes a month to reach Trinidad.
Wow.
Sometimes, if the mail delays, it will take 2 and 3 months.
Oh
But
my. Yes.
basically, it was around a month. So
Yeah.
that kind of connection built a strong,
Right.
absence make the heart go fonder. And
Absolutely.
my parents became closer to me and closer to me and closer to me. Now, while I
Right.
was studying there, I had a lot of students and friends who were my colleagues, and they would always talk about their sister and their sisters. And I'm like, but I don't have a sister. I got a little brother because I left him home. Remember, I
Yeah.
left him home when he was 8 years, and I'm that
Wow.
boy that now grew up. And I
Yes.
told my parents, I wrote in a letter, and I told them, I said, how is it? I don't have a sister. My mom
Oh.
said, make dua. And my mom were not having children ever since my brother. She just naturally were not having children ever since
Okay.
my brother were born 7 years after me. And she said, talk to your sheikh and ask him to make dua for me. And I did
Wow.
speak to one of my sheikh, a direct sheikh of mine, very direct, very spiritual, very spiritual. And I asked him to make dua for my mom, for me to have a sister. And would you believe at the age of 40, my mom conceived my sister? Very
Wonderful.
interesting. So it's,
SubhanAllah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a whole story. It's a whole world that went on here.
That's
And
amazing.
and that brought this whole connection, one brother, one sister. You know what I'm saying? Then
Oh
I
my
came
God.
back. I came back after studying 7 years from India. Came back to Trinidad, spent 10 years there. Oh, I got married in India. And my
Oh, you
mother,
got married.
yes, my mother
Okay.
insisted that I should get married. And I also
Okay.
lived that life that I should get married and please my parents. So they said they wanted me to get married in India. So I
And
got
how old were you when you got married? If you don't
21.
mind me.
21.
21. Okay.
Yeah,
Mashallah.
and Dr. Sheba, it was a totally arranged marriage.
Wow.
And I did
Okay.
not say a forced marriage because my parents were in Trinidad. My mom said, I want you to get married and bring back a girl from India, and that's what it is. I said, no, I think I want to get married in Trinidad. My mom, her pressure went up and she went to the hospital.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
that's a way to get you to listen, huh?
Listen, that's the kind of emotion I'm talking about. I could
Yes, of
not
course.
tell my mother that I'm going to get married in Trinidad. And
Wow.
I had to get married in India. So I spoke to my sheikh, and my sheikh said, okay, and arrangements were made, and I got
Wow.
married. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
All to, and listen, I did not see, I only saw the girl, the real kind of movie thing. She was there in a kitchen or in a living room. I went to the veranda, and
Wow.
my friend brought her, my friend wife brought her, and my
Okay.
friend's home with her mother. So she came with her mother to my friend's home. His wife brought her in the living room. Me and my
Wow.
friend in the veranda. We had to just see.
Okay.
It did not come so close that she brought the tea for us. No, I had to see.
From a distance.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And well, it all happened, and today, alhamdulillah, we have 6 children. And but
Mashallah.
why did I mention that? When I came back with my parents, there was no question of me going to live somewhere else. That thought could not exist. My parents could not entertain that thought.
So your wife knew that when she's going to go back with you, she's going to be living with your parents, right?
And that's how her family lived.
Yes.
Her
Okay.
brother, she had one brother and I think 5 sisters, and that brother lived with his wife, with her parents. And
Okay.
that was the bond. It was I know I'm talking, you see, a lot of people look at me as very modern and very liberal, but listen, I have a very traditional background, And, as we were speaking about media, I love the balance. I love it. I really love the balance in life. And I
Yeah.
can share that. So I got married to a girl that I only said assalamu alaikum to after we got married.
Oh my goodness, that was it.
That
Just
was
a
it. After we got married, after the nikah, it
Yes.
was, then I started to speak. And could you imagine a
Yes,
foreign
that-
girl in a foreign language?
Yes, oh my goodness. But mashallah, you've had such a successful marriage, mashallah, with that beginning. And that's what's so important for people to understand. Like nowadays, when people are trying to decide to get married, they want to know everything. And even that's not enough. Despite the resources they have, it's not enough. And so Sheikh Shafayat yourself have had said assalamu alaikum and mashallah, look where you are today and how successful you've been. So I think that's a beautiful story.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that sometimes the more you look is the less you see.
Yes,
so,
yes,
so this is where the aunties and the uncles and the friends come in, where they can do better investigation than you.
yes,
This person who is seeking, you gotta like, you gotta see, you gotta like, you gotta know what you want. Nobody's saying no. See,
yeah,
like, know what you want. But when it
yeah.
comes to investigation, you gotta have the uncles and aunties do that. Why?
They
They
yeah,
will have a wider scope of what they're looking for. You and I, the person who is seeking will look through a different color of spectacles. Anything you see will be one color.
yes.
It's gonna,
Oh, that's
anyhow, we'll
yes,
have to talk about this psychological things in another talk show. But
absolutely.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
are words
yeah.
of wisdom, though. Those are words of wisdom for the youth. I think that's a beautiful point you just made.
Oh,
But
definitely. You
yes,
see, you
the
see, when
lens
you're in
you're.
love with someone, you can only see things the way you want to see it. Beauty
Yes,
lies in the eyes of the beholder. Beauty
yes,
lies in the eyes of the beholder. So what
yes,
happens is that you need that uncle and that auntie and some experienced people there who, when
yeah,
an auntie looks at a girl, she looks for certain qualities that she would really know what is better for her
yes,
nephew. And
yes,
when an uncle looks for a nephew or a niece or a boy, looks for a boy for a niece,
yes.
he knows what kind of man he wants best for his niece. So he sees different qualities that the niece is not
True,
seeing.
true.
She needs to know what
Very
she wants. I'm not saying she should not marry the person she doesn't want, but
yes,
it gotta have. I mean, listen, Dr. Sheeba.
yeah.
You're gonna buy a property. You get an appraiser, isn't it?
Yes, of course,
You're
yeah.
going to do something medical. You get someone in the medical field who can tell
Yes,
you
you
good,
get
bad,
someone
healthy.
experienced.
You,
Yes,
you, you
absolutely.
know, you need an engineer. So everyone does their own appraisal of the situation. You're going to do something, you get your doctor's advice whether you are able to do it or not. So you
Yes,
need that professional advice to
of
keep
course.
things running. And I don't understand why, when it comes to marriage, people just jump the ship and
Yeah,
after realize it's too late. We
yeah.
gotta. But anyhow, you didn't ask me about marriage, but you know what? I think that we have crossed our 15 minutes. So
Okay,
we
that goes
gotta go on
fast.
a break because this guy in the studio here is gonna shut me off. We gotta go on a break. And when we come back, I mean, you are the psychiatrist, you are the therapist. So if you ask me the question, that is
I
interesting. You're bringing back some memories to my mind that is really, really ticking me off here. It's getting my
oh,
brain ticked up. So let
all
us go
right.
on a short break. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation because I think this is interesting and we can share this with our viewers and inshallah. All right. So, to our viewers out there, we've been talking to Dr. Sheeba Rahman, and she has been questioning me on my life. I normally interview everybody about their life, and she's interviewing me here. But she's the therapist, she's the psychiatrist, and I have no choice. But it's a therapy for me also with her questions. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the Quran, in chapter 5, verse 67, Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhar Rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa in lam taf'al, fama balagta risalatahu. Very deep. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread the message of the Quran. And he told the prophet, and if you do not spread the message, you did not fulfill the mission of the messenger. So you and I are followers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we can afford one Quran, help us join in distributing the Quran. So if you can't afford one Quran, do it. $3. 10 Quran, $30. 100 Quran, $300.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. For those of you who have just tuned in, we're talking to Dr. Sheeba Rahman, medical doctor, psychiatrist, therapist, the whole 9 yards when it comes to mental issues, etc. And technically, she's questioning me right now, so I'm under the stress and the questions. So welcome back to the show, sister and Dr. Sheeba Rahman.
Thank you, Shaikh Shafayat. So you shared some very beautiful things about yourself, which I really appreciate, and it can really benefit the people who are listening. The kind of trauma that you described, the loss of a baby from your parents, and then what you had to experience as a child to kind of have to compensate them for that loss in the early stages of your life. That puts a big responsibility on a son of that age, because you felt their pain, and so you wanted to compensate them, and hence they were so protective over you, and then you felt you needed to come back and be with them. So you see, now it makes sense that where this started and where this sort of came from. But I did want to fast forward a little bit and ask you, when you did get married, and how beautiful the way in which you got married, and then you moved back into your mother's home, how then did you handle that, being a young married man and living with your mother and your wife in the same home? This is a dilemma that's faced by many in our community. And how do you kind of stay in the middle of that dynamic and take care of your household that way?
Well, as we said, that's where it's important to go to the Quran and the Sunnah for the balance. And I'm a Caribbean boy. I'm not, I'm in the middle path of the Caribbean boy and got married in India.
Yeah.
Again, the reason why I mentioned my upbringing, because of that, and you made an interesting point here, that I had to compromise that lifestyle when my parents lost their 10 months baby boy. I became that person that they had. And I sometimes when I was growing up as a boy, I would feel very frustrated. Every other boy around, they live like a boy, and here I gotta stay home. I can't go outside. I got limit. My friends gotta come home by me so we could play and play and go here, and if I'm allowed to go and play a little cricket or something, it got to go by the clock. So I went through that, but it's only when I went to India to study, I realized how much my parents missed me and how much I missed them, So when I came back with my wife, I couldn't think of leaving them, because I went through them being so close to me when I grew up until 16 years. And now when I came back with a wife, I couldn't think of leaving them. I couldn't. I had a lot of friends and people who tell me, but why don't you? I had friends who offered me homes and places. We'll move you to this place. We'll offer you this house. I just never thought about leaving my parents. Dr. Sheeba, so much so that when I spent 10 years in Trinidad with my parents, so it was this property, and I did an extension to the house. We did a little extension, which was connected technically, physically, not a distant house. It's one building.
Right, it's one structure.
Yeah, just that you got a different bedroom and a different kitchen. So it's like a big house with 5 bedrooms. So we just extended the home, and I stayed there with my children and my wife and children. And it is important to understand that the connection was so much that when I left Trinidad after living for 10 years and coming to India to move here, my parents moved with me also.
Okay.
I
So
I
they
could not.
went
Huh?
they went where you went. Once you
I,
left, they left with you.
yes, I went where they were, and they were with me until today. Alhamdulillah. You
Oh,
know, my mom passed away 4 months. Yeah, about 4 months ago plus, and my kids grew up with my parents so much that
mm-hmm.
they were like they almost thought that they were their parents. They were
Sure,
their
sure.
parents. That love, that affection, that
Right.
connection. You would not believe that connection. It's beyond understanding. It is beyond
Right.
understanding.
And that's a beautiful thing that you say, because right now in this day and age, Sheikh Shafayat, people are finding that the elderly people don't have their bond with their grandchildren. They don't even have that bond with their children. There's some distance from them, whether it's emotional, mental, or psychological, they're distant. And how did your mom and dad create that? Now you were close, but how did that happen where you were able to extend so comfortably? Because your wife was coming from a different country now into Trinidad. So how did all of that come together, where you all became one big happy family?
Well, remember, as you have children, so I happen to have 6 children, and they are
MashaAllah.
connected to the parents. Could you imagine that, to my parents? So that
Mm-hmm.
automatically puts a kind of love and understanding in the heart of a wife. And I need to share that. When a
Right.
woman sees that her children is connected to someone, and remember, a mother loves her children dearly. And if this
Mm-hmm.
mother sees that her children are connected to my parents, how could that mother, how could that mother forsake my parents when the most loved people after her happens to be my parents? And in
Mm-hmm.
some cases, and many a times, not once in a way, my children will prefer to sleep with my parents. You
Mm-hmm.
see,
Wow.
so now
Yeah.
when a mother sees that connection, that's why when we moved here to America, I
Mm-hmm.
could not separate from my parents. Neither could my kids separate from my parents. Neither
Wow.
could my Dr. Sheba. Uh,
Uh-huh.
it gets emotional.
Yeah, that's
But my mom passed away
mm-hmm.
4 months and 3 weeks now.
I'm so
Until
sorry.
today, one of
Mm-hmm.
my sons sleeps with my dad.
Oh, oh.
Could you imagine that? Just
Yeah,
cannot separate. And I'm
yes,
telling you something that is not theory. It's
yeah,
real. The,
yeah.
my kids cannot bear to see my dad look lonely without my mother.
Oh my,
Oh
look at that.
yeah, that. So I mean, I know this is the profession that you are in, and that may be able to help other people, but it
Yes,
all came from that connection. If
yes,
if
that
my
love,
if
of
my
course.
kids did not have that connection with my parents from Trinidad, the Caribbean, 30
Yeah,
years ago, 30
right.
years ago,
Mm.
and I'm not talking of a little kid sleeping with my dad. I'm talking about a 30 years man.
Wow,
30
mashallah.
years. My
That's
daughters who are in their 30s and my sons, my youngest child is 29,
mm.
30. They will sleep with my dad because of
Oh,
that. They know that my mom is not around, and they
wow.
try to replace that love and affection. This is not a biological relationship. It is a real spiritual heart to heart relationship.
Oh, that's deep, Sheikh Shafayat. That is so deep. And it's so beautiful because I can't, the love that you're describing, that your kids and your parents have, I mean, it exudes from you and your tears. It's so beautiful and so emotional. But it's a learning lesson because I can't imagine how much love your parents had to offer to you and to your children, that this is how your adult children feel at this time, where
Well,
they with the grandfather now at this age so he's not lonely. That's beautiful.
of course,
And that's highly of your parents, very highly of your parents that they did that. It created that kind of bond with their grandchildren. I mean, not a lot of grandparents can accomplish that. Some of them ask what, this is just very beautiful what you've described, and speaks very highly of your family, mashallah.
technically, my kids to some point believe that my parents love them more because I've always been traveling, doing dawah all over the
Right.
world. I'm always here and there. And my parents were always there for them. So my kids really and truly, and I'm not talking about 6 and 7 year old, I'm talking about the youngest, 30 years up to 40
Yeah.
years, between 30 to 40 years. So they're not, in the American language, they are men and women.
Yes,
And
yes, of course.
they believe that my parents, I were more loving to them than me, and they were always
Wow.
dear more than me. But it's
Yeah,
all because of, remember, if I had gone separate and gone my way separate, that connection would not have been there. So Allah
certainly,
made that connection,
certainly.
and I mean, words sometimes can't express it.
No, no, your emotions say it all, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So, when you did go away to India for studying, two questions. Becoming a sheikh, was that a profession you chose for yourself, or your parents chose that for you?
I think we have to have another show. That was a
Okay.
different world. That was a different world. That was another kind of thing. You know,
Mhm.
there were some missionaries. There were some missionaries. You know, in the Tabligh Jamaat. You know, have you heard of the
Right,
Tabligh?
right.
That came
Yes.
from South Africa to Trinidad, and they're the
Mhm.
ones who motivated me and encouraged me and gave me a scholarship
Okay.
and sponsored the whole thing to go to study. But my
Okay.
parents did not want a path with me. I
Uh-huh.
had to get all my uncles and aunties and relatives to convince them to let me go, and they still never, until finally they said, it's something good, and if that's what he wants to do, then we will have to go with the flow. But they never wanted, because they could not dream of me going separate.
Uh-huh. So did you feel that sense of independence and freedom felt good when you got to go away for your
Well,
studies?
well, to be honest with you, as I said, my father never bought me a bicycle to ride on the road because he was scared I will get knocked down. I'm just sharing something with you. When I went
Sure.
to India, I took
Mhm.
some friends and I took a bicycle and we rode from morning to night. I said, I'm going to ride until I can't ride again.
Oh, wow.
I feel like a free bird. I'm all away and I'm all in India. Nobody could stop me. So
Yes, look at
I'm
that.
giving you a living example, right? So
Right.
based on that question, I did feel very independent, very free. But listen,
Yeah.
my heart was very broken. Even till now, do you know, if I dream that I'm
Uh-huh.
going away to study and I'm 15, 16 years and I'm leaving my parents, I started crying my dream.
Oh, oh, that's sweet.
Yes, at this
Yeah, of
age,
course.
Dr. Shiva.
Yeah. I was saying you're so close with your family that it's not just in your heart, it's also in your mind and it's manifesting in these dreams, you know. And because your mother's loss was so recent, it was only 4 months ago, this is going to be a healing process because it's a big loss. It's almost like you've lost a part of yourself, you know,
Oh,
because you,
definitely. Listen, when
yeah.
I go to do a janaza for someone,
Hmm.
it just brings tears to my eyes. As soon as I
Sure.
see death, and I
Hmm.
hear death right now,
Hmm.
I really, I just can't handle it. But
Hmm.
as I said, we may have to have another show. It's only
Yeah.
when Allah says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajoon, that to Allah we belong and to Allah is our return. That's my big confidence. My big courage that Allah
Yeah.
says we belong to Him. So I got to put that in my heart that my mother belongs to Allah, and
Hmm.
Allah took back what belongs to Him, and I have no control. But
Wow.
the grievance, the cry,
Hmm.
it still can't stop. I
Yes,
just
it's a
can't.
bereavement process.
I just can't see it when I go to a funeral. I just went to
Yeah.
someone's funeral just a few days ago, and it was like tears. I had to just put on my shades and put on my mask. Somebody realized what's going on inside of me.
But Sheikh Shafayat, it is okay. It is okay to grieve and it is okay to go through this and let your feelings out because this is your heart. This is your mother. You know, she's raised you and you were such a huge part of her and she was a huge part of you. So it's okay and this is a process. And subhanAllah, you described this so eloquently and so beautifully. This is example for so many people who have lost a loved one because you're human. It's okay for you to be sad and for you to cry and for you to miss her in the way that you do. So, I would offer you a Kleenex if I could, but
Yeah,
I know that,
thank you.
this is going to be a healing process and it's going to take time. And the way you incorporate it with the deen, subhanAllah, it couldn't be more beautiful how you said that. So, again, I'm sorry for your loss, and and I pray for your mother's maghfirah, and I'm sure she's in the highest level. In inshallah, you will meet again. Inshallah.
Inshallah. I think I just lost for words.
Oh, Shaikh Shafayat, I appreciate you being so kind and sharing this kind of love. This is what people need to see, the love between a mother and a son that exists, and a family. And this came from your mother. She gave you this. She gave you this gift of love. These
Yeah.
tears are coming from the love that she gave you. And all mothers need to learn this. They need to see that what a loving mother she was to give you these feelings and emotions,
Yeah.
Shaykh,
I learned love from my mother. I really did.
yeah, yes, and that's beautiful. And you're a family man, you're a father, you're a leader, you're a role model. And look the gift she gave to you that exudes from you. It's beautiful, mashallah. In my field, Shaykh Shafayat, I see people whose mothers reject them. They reject them and they don't want anything to do with them. So this in itself is a beautiful gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a mother that loves you so much that your heart exudes her love till this day.
Yeah.
Even when she's not here, her presence is here. Her
And as
presence
I
is
said, my mother lived with me up to the last point, and that's it. I'm in there, and I gotta walk by the bedroom. It's from birth. It's from my birth to her passing away.
Yeah.
That's a whole different bond. It's a whole different bond. It's not a geographical, biological kind of thing. It is a whole different mathematics that the calculator
Yeah.
cannot really calculate. It really can.
Right.
Words cannot express it. And
It's
this will
taken-
live with me until.
Inshallah, of course. Like you said, there are no words.
Yeah.
There are
yeah,
no,
yeah.
and your emotion says it all.
So, if you have any other thing, again, I know I've lost my trend of my operation on this show. So, anything else you have to say? We got to conclude. We're out of time, Dr. Sheeba. But you put me on a spot here that
Jacob-
I interview people all the time. But anyhow, go ahead and we'll conclude the program. See what you
I
have to
think
say.
part of this is the nature of the field, that I come with, so that my questions can elicit this sort of a response. But I hope that it was healing for you, and that I hope that it was the teaching for others, that this kind of love exists, and it's okay to feel sad and mourn the loss of a loved one, and you're only human, and it's a natural process, and I thank you sincerely, Shaykh Shafayat, for sharing something so personal with myself and all your viewers and the community. And inshallah, may Allah reward you for all of that. It's a very noble thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You well, you did your job. That's what a therapist is all about. A therapist is supposed to make you cry and laugh, right? So, thank you, and we would love to have you back on the show again, and we'll get into some other issues and topics, inshallah. So, Jazakallah, Dr. Sheeba. And to our viewers out there, we have been talking to Dr. Sheeba Rahman, who is a psychiatrist. She's a therapist, and I did prove that today. She made me cry on the show. Nobody did that to me on this show so far, but it made me get lost out for words, and Allah alone knows best. So thank you very much for tuning in to Alhikmat TV, and always stay tuned to Alhikmat TV. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.